I would like to call the Washington County Personnel Committee meeting for April 10th, 2025 to order. And the first thing we have on the agenda is accept the minutes. We have a motion to accept the minutes. Moved by Jim, seconded by Carol. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Staffing street backfill requests. Anyhow,
Okay, so we have public health had a little bit of movement with their own employees. So what happened was the WIC senior program nutritionist changed her position to the part-time position, which in turn the WIC program nutritionist was promoted up to WIC senior program nutritionist. And then the part-time nutritionist went into the full-time program nutritionist position. So they all were able to work that out together, and everybody's happy. So that was good.
are you sure everybody's happy?
I think so.
Out
I
into
think
the
so.
We need a
Yeah.
flow chart for that.
Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
yep. Other than that, they did have a senior clerk that vacated due to a resignation. For social services, they did have a caseworker vacate due to a resignation as well. And that's all I have for backfills.
Okay, now we're on to the staffing patterns.
Okay, so the county clerk had some items moved from government ops. What actually moved was her one request to add the motor vehicle license clerk part-time to DMV. It would be a new position. When she discussed it, I believe she asked for a clerk part-time, but it was actually a clerk in DMV, which the position is a motor vehicle license clerk. So that was her ask. She did supply me with some numbers. If you guys would like to hear the cost of that. She was looking to add the person just for 2 days a week. What her budget number that she wanted for the rest of the year was $10,300. So with that number, the account, okay, so that, let me go back. So it's the cost. Let me go back because it depends on the other ask. So there is another ask that she had there. It was an account clerk to a clerk. So it's a straight position. She has an account clerk. It's vacant. She wants to make it a clerk. One grade difference. Usually we review the job duties of the position when it vacates to see if it's appropriate to keep that position in the department. So the account clerk is a grade higher than a clerk. So she does want to have that. So that, I guess, would be the one ask, is if we could make the account clerk a clerk position.
Do we know what the savings would be for the downgrade?
$1,321.31.
So our ask is not gonna get paid.
Well, I'll get into that. Because that's just for that savings of that position right now. So if I could just ask for that one.
I'll make
first.
a motion to accept
Made by
the
Carol,
downgrade.
seconded by Jim, Dave. Is there any discussion? Yeah.
So my concern, for what it's worth, is that there's a person that we want to move into that slot now.
But
And
that all depends on exams and everything.
I get that. She's already a clerk.
She's temporary clerk.
My fear is
Provisional.
that we will slide this person into the clerk position, and then in July, you will be asked to move that clerk position back to an account clerk position for 2026. So I don't want this to be a temporary add. If we're moving the account clerk down to clerk, I don't want 3 months from now, the board to be asked, put it back to an account clerk, and giving her extra duties.
I don't think she intends that account clerk position to even be anymore. The person was working in DMV as an account clerk, like in DMV office. Now she wants to take the person and work in the county clerk office to do more work with the county archivist.
That's just-
So it would be,
I just want to make sure it's not a temporary solution to a
No.
long-term.
What I understood also was based on getting the grant or not, we got the grant, she's gonna ask for the clerk. Temporary clerk.
So that temporary clerk that's in
Right.
a staffing pattern is gonna stay there contingent upon her getting another grant. And the count clerk will go down to clerk.
Well, our,
I'm just
Yeah, so
expressing
she
my
would have-
concern that you might hear 2 months from now. Oh, by the way, that clerk position that we did in April,
I don't think that's.
we now
right.
would like to put for account clerk.
our practice has always been remove that position from the staffing pattern, don't leave it in there. If she wants to refill it, she has to come back and ask again, to put it back in the staffing pattern.
And I'm just voicing my concern that that ask will be during the budget process, and it seems silly to put it to clerk, only to put it back to account clerk a few months from now. Because we give her extra duties to do whatever, it's almost better to put her in.
I think it's the intent though,
I get that,
of
but
account, like, if,
I've
I
been here a
think in
couple of
this,
days, and these things tend to.
but
Couple
I,
days,
but I think in this,
This week?
in this case though, I think it would be maybe a senior clerk instead of an account clerk, if, because of the duties that this person is
And
doing.
I'd be remiss if I didn't
Right.
voice my concern that I've seen, that I've heard the song before.
I thought the person would. I thought the person was vacating the senior account clerk position, and then they were filling this new position with a new person.
The
No,
account
that's too-
clerk,
that's the other ask.
the account clerk position is vacant right now. So we looked at the position and the person worked in DMV as a, like doing financials. So now she doesn't want that person doing financial things. She wants that person to now help with archives and county clerk area, which is why we discussed to put it to a clerk position, because they wouldn't be doing the financial portion of it. So that was that part. Bringing the
So I think. you need to
the
take
granted
that-
position in,
Yeah,
but the thing is, I guess it doesn't matter about the person. You know what I mean?
It doesn't.
It's about the position. So the account clerk to clerk, that was based on the duties, and that's what she felt her need was right now. It doesn't really matter who she puts into it,
It does not.
right?
If you're comfortable that the duties are gonna stay clerk and we're not gonna hear a request 2 months from now, then fine. Again,
Yes,
I apologize because you
Yeah.
tried to set up a meeting with me. I haven't been available.
yeah.
So I apologize that here I am.
Yep.
But
No need to apologize.
Yeah. So that,
Danielle did try to connect with me and I just couldn't.
Understood.
so that's where we're at right now, and I think with the conversation that I had with Lisa, I don't feel like she's going to switch that. I think it is what it's supposed to be and where it will be.
I reserve the right to recall.
You.
So we have the motion, we have a second, is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Opposed, carried.
So that brings me into this other position.
Yeah.
So the new part-time motor vehicle license clerk, she was asking to actually bring back a former employee. So again, this would be at the same rate of pay. When you bring someone back, it would be like the step 4 of a motor vehicle license clerk.
Nice.
So she's asking to bring the same person back at the rate of pay that she would have been as a motor vehicle license clerk with her longevity. So having said that, it would be, with the account clerk position being vacated since January, it brings us to a cost savings of $19,692.45. That doesn't include the fringe, which this would cover the position for that, the rest of the year, because she only wanted the $10,300 budgeted for the rest of the year for the position, which would be a savings after that of $9,392.45.
So I have a question, bring her back in longevity. What's our policy on that? How we,
We have to bring it to committee to ask for it to be
like, a
approved.
certain period of time, we had to.
It's a different, she was a senior motor vehicle license clerk, retired,
I
so,
come back in the same position.
so she'd be brought back at a different position at that rate of pay closest to where she was at when she left.
Discussion about a length period of time that they
To
have.
come back in the same position, I thought,
Right, it would be for the same position,
this isn't the same position.
yeah. Yeah,
It isn't this, and maybe I'm thinking about the wrong individual, but isn't this one's retired, so she's only makes so much money?
right,
She's only earned so much. So it's
right,
not a matter if she's gonna
which
be able
is
to go over
the, right,
Right.
which is that for this year
I don't
that.
have any issue with it, I just,
You understand?
my issue is longevity. We had a period of time to come back in longevity, like.
In the same title.
position. She's not coming back in the same title, is she?
She's coming back in the title below where she was at.
What would be the difference in her and part-time under 20 hours? So we don't have.
It would be 2 days a week, yeah, so 15 hours,
She would get like.
no benefits. Really, the budget, she just said $10,300 is what she would need for this year.
So the issue is not this year's budget, issue is next year's budget.
Well, if she's trying to stay under the number, it won't change.
The number
If
for
you'll add the
next year would
10,000,
be
but
the,
it would
well,
still
the
be all she
20,
can make.
she can make 22,500, I believe,
So
for,
she can make.
right, what she could make.
Charles?
If she weren't able to get the step up for seniority, would she not take the job?
That might be a possibility.
I just want to make sure we're in line with the policy.
The policy, you are correct about the policy being when they come back at the same title. We never mentioned that she left as a senior and come back as a lower title. We never, that's never written.
So if you did approve it at committee, it would have to go to
Full board,
for
right,
resolution.
It'd be a formal resolution over in the policy.
Right.
We've done that before in the past with other departments.
right.
Should we?
Well, her reasoning is the knowledge
Right,
and the uptick of transactions this year.
and we can't deny that, there's a crowd.
And the newer person in the senior level, she'd be able to assist that person because she held that title before. So that's kind of where she's at with this person, is assisting the newish staff. I mean, she does have some new motor vehicle license clerks as well. So,
From a budget perspective this year, I have no issue with it. That's not good. And I don't, it sounds like we're not violent, we're not going against our policy.
So you'll need a resolution to override it.
right,
You'll need a formal resolution to override
So
it.
you are going against it, that's why you're overriding that.
You're making an exception.
You're making an exception
Make an exception to bring this person back at a different.
in a
Yes.
different
at a different
lower
rate.
level.
But Dave, just a second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jeff,
And I wanna,
and then discussion.
you know, there's an uptick in DMP and I'm sure a good part of it is the rush to get the enhanced license. I wonder if it's gonna be the same next year, whether we need that position next year.
And that could be discussed. And I think she said
I think she
till
brought the committee, she
2029
expected,
that it was going to be.
But it would have to be evaluated budget time.
Yeah.
Yeah, she brought the number that was expiring was huge, but of course, some of the rush right now is, even if it didn't expire, you gotta have the fly. But the number that are expiring is really changing over the next.
seemed like it was a
couple
3-year
years.
swing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is pretty, but the other thing you wanna remember, and I get the budget part, cause we're not in a good way by any means, and I'm not gonna try to say we are. This happens to be an area that brings revenue. I mean, that's different. This is one that brings revenue.
I did discuss this with Lisa yesterday, and just for conversation. They did 87 licenses yesterday alone. So, you know, there is an uptick right now.
And
That
she's
number.
double the revenue of January through March from 2024 to 2025. She's doubled that this year. Actually, more than doubled that.
Okay.
So she expects the revenue.
Yeah, I agree, we probably need to do this, and I'm not against any of these moves, I'm a little bit frustrated, because I sat in the gallery, the government apps ones, and as she was trying to explain it, confuse everybody, we said, hey, can you put it down on a sheet with all the numbers so that we can look at it? And here we are, you're trying to explain all the moves again, and it's not down here on a sheet where it might make it simpler, but I'm in agreement with it, I just making it frustrated too.
Gotcha, understand, understand that.
And I'll own that supervisor. They attempted to get to me and I was not available.
And I'll own it because we didn't meet until yesterday. So, yeah.
You did ask.
Okay, so did we have a motion? We had a motion, we had a second, is there further discussion, Dan?
Just a quick thought, not trying to change anybody's vote, but if you think by hiring more people is gonna make us more money, you know, that's not good practice, number one. And number two, the more you do this, the harder it is to say no when you run out of money and you gotta stop hiring people. So just be careful where you're going with this. And that's all.
And then your point's well taken, Dan. The other side of that is, we finally turned a corner where people are willing to come back to this facility and get service here because of response time and the time they can get you the line and the way you're treated. And we know there's a increase in the volume. We don't know how long it's going to be, but we certainly don't want our residents who come here for service to decide they want to go someplace else either. And then we end up losing revenue.
And you
It's a
don't,
vicious cycle.
you don't want to give away your increased revenue
Right,
either,
absolutely.
but I think we're up about 40,000 for the quarter
Yeah.
over last year this time. So it is bringing more people in. We're getting there, but it's, and you can't lose the people that have the ability and the ability to train
Right.
when you gotta bring new people in. And I think that's where she's at this very moment. We'll keep looking because.
And we may very well, when you do your budget this year, maybe very well, take a look at positions as we always have in the past, but may have to take a further look at the projection of how they actually gonna be utilized and, what's the revenue from those? What's the cost level? So do we have any other conversation? Not all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Okay, so the next item is from public health. This did not go to her committee, but it is something that I was hoping I could ask for personnel. It was a request to remove one senior clerk and add one clerk due to the resignation. And it would be a backfill up to the lower position. And again, it is what we do. We look at the position when it's vacated. So the senior clerk was vacated. And she likes to hire the clerk level and then have them work their way up. So.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Jay and Dip. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next item that was on the agenda was for veterans and it was moved from Health and Human Services. I've since talked to Ken and he's actually taking this ask back. He's hoping that he might have found someone for the deputy position, so he wants to keep it as is for now, so.
Okay, so it's been moved. All right, so we're on to other business.
Other business is the discussion of the Commissioner of Social Services position. So Tammy in Health and Human Services mentioned that she was retiring in August. So I just wanted to bring that forward to discuss some of the recruitment and how we want to go forward with that.
I think the first question would be, do we want to post the position outside of the county? Typically you do with department heads, right? You want to see who's interested in the position. You have the job description with the updated minimum qualifications that the state gave us. And the salary you're looking at based through what she's making, what the current commissioner is making now, which is the amount budgeted for the year. Yes, and that'll be determined on the experience of the individual that applies for the position. And then I guess the interview process, that would be the discussion as well. Did you want like a joint personnel and health and human services? How would you like to conduct the interviews once we do that?
Personally, I'm in favor of doing the personnel and health and human services together. I don't know how Charlie.
And then just have any,
Yeah, that's-
obviously any supervisor that wants
Yeah,
to attend
absolutely.
can.
Absolutely. So I'm a big proponent for promoting within if we have someone that can meet the requirements and can do that. So they would still be included in the advertisement. I know we're reaching outside
Oh, yes.
the area.
Yep.
So we give everybody an opportunity and if they met the criteria we thought we needed at that point in time, then they'd be selected. If not, it would be whoever we happen to come up with, but I think we need to make sure that we at least give the opportunity for upward mobility.
And we're still gonna have the county requirement that they live here.
Yes, residency will be required.
What's the minimum time for posting? Weeks?
Depends on how many applications we get. We put it up for 2 weeks usually with a deadline, and then we'll extend it depending on how many we've received.
And the qualifications for this position, are they ones that you would find in the private sector, or are they really so specific that it's gonna be almost this position in another someplace else? Or is it gonna be an opportunity to go way out fishing, or we went in a small circle for this? I have no idea what to call it.
The state provides us the qualifications,
Yes.
but right now they are general, so to speak. It's 5 years of full-time paid experience in health, education, or social agency, 3 years in an administrative capacity. So, or 5 years in an administrative management position with the responsibility of planning, directing, and coordinating the work of staff working in several units performing different functions.
That's pretty general.
So it sounds general, yeah.
Can you send us all a copy of that?
I sure
That would be
will.
Kind of
Yep.
nice to,
Yep, I'll send you the posting once it's final.
I think that we should make it a habit to make sure that the board knows what we're looking at,
Yeah.
not just talk about it.
I think this is an extremely important position in the county. And we don't want to I want to make sure we have the broadest search as possible. Make sure we're turning both internal and external. Making sure that we're not putting false deadlines on, like 2 weeks for the job opening. It's going to take a long time to go through this process. We need the right person in place. This is a very expensive part of the county. We'll get 75 to 90% back on it. It is an expensive part. We need to make sure we have the right person managing that.
And we have enough lead time here so that I believe Dave, there is, so that we get the first group in and we look and it doesn't seem to meet what we want, we still got time to go back out.
Right,
And check it again. Charlie,
I think we might want to consider expanding the requirements to be a little more specific and broader than we have there. That with a lot of people who might be of that age haven't had a lot of other skills. And a lot is changing in the world, and I think we need to have a little more technical savvy, a little more ability to think outside of the box instead of having been in the same role coming up.
The quals are regulated by the state, so we can't really change them,
We can
but
not put any preference if they know more about this thing or the other thing.
we can add our need of
Our
what
needs.
you think our need is. We can add as an addition so that we can receive more applicants.
And we have to
In a
remember
way,
the minimum
so-
qualifications are just the bare minimum.
Right,
That, you can have somebody with a lot more experience in other fields that you're interested in,
Right.
that it might set them apart from what is actually.
yeah, I wasn't arguing with any of the minimums, I wanna make
Yeah.
it.
answer.
Yeah.
Got it.
And you might find that with your applicants, once you see who applies, you might have
Right.
somebody, that really has.
Yeah, you
more-
kind
That's
of
more
don't wanna,
experience.
you don't really wanna count anybody out, is
Right.
what you're
You
trying
want
to
it
do.
broad,
And it'll show what actually shows up.
Chairman, you feel like you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm gonna start my application right now.
I
If
would
you don't find
suggest
something, you get it.
if we could list the position for like 3 or 4 weeks, so it gives people enough time and send it out to some associations like NISAC and.
Listserv for-
Association as well, yeah.
Listeners for DSS.
I'd just like to say that, Tammy served us well, and I'm gonna say in this role for over 20 years, because I'm on my 18th and she's been here the whole time. And of all the problems we have down there at the very moment, it's really a result of how the whole thing's evolved the last 5 years. To begin with, the way the system was set up, this thing used to cost us a couple $1 million a year without Medicaid. And it worked fine. And at one time, When we owned the nursing home, it was even a tougher job because even though you didn't run the nursing home, a lot of that stuff went through your umbrella. And that was a bigger task, and we got that off our plate. But this whole system was never set up to handle this drug epidemic. And they're just sending all them and making it fit in a program that it doesn't fit. And that's where the costs are. So there's no way to really evolve with that. You know what you're doing and you do it well, and then this gets thrown at you and nothing fits. So I agree with Charlie. We need somebody outside of the box with a different, just a different mindset, maybe a little more fiscal responsibility or narrowed in on certain things. And it's gonna be hard to come up with the questions that'll make those come out as to who is that person.
So maybe if we put that in as a pre-qualifier, we may find somebody, we fit, several people might fit into that category. As we talk to them, it may dwindle down because their need of fiscal accountability may be different, but ours would be, but.
But it's hard to be on the empathetic side and get to the fiscal side. I get it. And it's set up purposely that way. They don't want you to look at the money. That's the way the state's got it set up.
Al, do you have any comments on that?
None that are appropriate for this session, sir.
All right. Gonna be an interesting finance meeting. That's why I stopped.
Stay tuned.
We have one other here.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that department head evaluation schedule, has been out now. We're starting in the, April committees for IT. That'll be the first, department head evaluation and then continuing government ops in April. And then the rest for the department's heads will be in the May and June committees. So kind of spread it out to give a little more time for each department head.
And I would just like to, let's bump it up, but I would just like as chairman of the personnel committee, ask for as much maximum participation as we can get from the supervisors. I know it's difficult. I know it's, the time schedules don't always line up like we set out for our regular schedules or whatever the case may be to be here. But I think it's very important the more supervisors we have here for these evaluations, because we all end up voting on it to approve in the end. And it's, I think it's important that the department heads know that we're here to support them should they need it, but also that for us to have a handle on, you know, we can't always all be here, we know that, okay? But I think this is one of those guys, if we can try to be here, show.
It's a different level of conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of them asking for
Exactly.
something or denying something, you're having a very candid conversation about how your everyday work goes.
And like I said before, in many cases, and I just feel this way, that those of us that are on a certain committee, you know, I use human services, for example. Those that are here for a majority of those human services committees have a feel of what the department head is reporting and those types of things. But if it's not your committee day and you don't come that day, we understand that too, but you don't understand what all the full conversation may have been throughout the year at those committees. And so it gives you an opportunity to ask those questions that you may not have been here to ask at the evaluation process. So supervisors can feel comfortable about the evaluation we made as well. So I'll get up my soapbox there and move down. Is there anything else to come before the committee at this point in time? If not, we are adjourned and we'll move into the finance.
We'll start with a motion to accept the March 13th minutes. By Jim, second by Daryl. Discussion.
No, I wanted to try to catch, Sam to hand me a.
You got it, Ed. You want to each?
Yes, please.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, Larry's gonna join us, at some point here, and, hopefully we'll well along or over by the time he gets here. Department of Social Services, SUV bid is number one on the list.
Deb and I have the information. I think Tammy also sent it to some of the supervisors to explain why she needs the vehicle that is being purchased, and it is to replace the van that we currently have. India, that's the oldest vehicle, I believe she said, that's over there in their fleet. The request was to award the bid to Bob Ferrario Chevrolet. And that price was $34,503.20.
Move it. Second. Yeah. Discussion.
Did she say the miles on that? On the one they're replacing? Yes. 90,000.
93,000.
And is it,
Just getting broken in.
is that vehicle, is it like a specialty van? Does it serve a purpose for a certain?
Is it any different than something we have in carpool?
It serves a purpose for her fleet.
Yeah.
And then it's going into our fleet to replace, a 2012 that has over 150,000. So we recycle them out into, because they usually have lower mileage.
And she needed something with more space than the car she had, right, in her fleet, so that's why it's a bigger
They have
vehicle.
Vehicle that has more seating capacity than the other pieces.
So my question to that is gonna be, so it would replace one in carpool with 112,000. That's what you're saying,
So it replaces-
or 150,000. So does that mean you don't have newer ones that would work in carpool if we just didn't buy this?
We have a plan set in place, and when we do the budget.
No, I get
and we
that.
Requested this for this was our plan.
Yep.
Do you want us to reevaluate our plan? Me on the fly right now? Can't.
No,
But
I'm not trying to reevaluate the plan. I'm trying to say, if she needed a vehicle of this caliber today, could she get that in carpool? Do you have something that's newer that doesn't have 150,000 miles? Do we have something in the fleet? That's what I'm asking. Right, that's what well, I don't know if it's
not
the
taken
same.
out, then they can, yeah. If somebody hasn't signed it out, yes. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and what year is the one it's replacing?
2012.
So in 13 years, it hasn't averaged even 10,000 miles a year. And I just don't know if it's necessary. I'm telling you, money's tight. I don't know where you guys want to start cutting. And I don't know. I'll let you decide.
Wasn't the original plan for this a grant that was gonna provide them with the thing, a van that where they could actually do business inside the van?
That didn't work out.
Didn't get approved.
We had to lease it, yeah.
Along those lines, that you're thinking, is this supported by reimbursement through
Yeah,
social service?
and our new rate is 62% is what we're hearing for this year, and I don't know if that's going to 50 next year, or if it's going back to 70. I have no
Well, if
idea.
you buy it this year, is it 62%?
We don't know. We didn't know last year.
Oh,
was
you
gonna
don't
be
know what it
62.
is
You
this
have
year.
no idea.
So the answer is no, because based on the dollar amount, it's gonna be advertised over 5 years anyway.
So what does that mean if it's gonna be amortized over 5 years? There's gonna be some reimbursement.
Yes, sir. It could be as low as 29%, as high as 75%. Depending on the program usage.
But
But I agree with the budget officer that if there's a van and carpool it's not something they use every day. So on the days that you need a bigger van, go take one out of carpool. I agree with the budget officer.
I mean, right now, I just, so I asked, you're talking less than 7,200 miles a year. So,
I think you've got your vehicles fixed.
Yeah, you got you.
what's that?
You have your vehicles fixed,
As far as what?
miles per year. The going out ban is 150,000 miles.
No, not out of her department.
93.
Yeah.
So
93,000.
there are two vehicles and I was just reading,
Right, the
what
one that would
Tammy
go
said.
into her department is the 93,000.
No, she's getting a brand new one.
So the vehicle in DSS has 93,000 miles on
How
it.
many
That's
years
the
ago, how
van.
old is that
We're gonna
vehicle?
Right.
How
replace
many years
that.
have we owned
That's
that?
in 2016.
Oh, I asked,
Right.
well.
And then
She's
the
gonna
plan-
lose the 2012 vehicle.
Right.
That's gonna go into
16, so
salvage.
it's 9
or-
years.
Because the plan was the one
So
that was
it's
in
still less than-
DSS.
still
would go
less
to
than
the
10,000.
VW.
About 11-ish thousand. I tried to understand the $25,000 differential that was in the memo, and can you explain that to me on the reimbursement plan?
I'll let Al explain that.
A vehicle, my understanding, I haven't seen the memo, it wasn't sent to me for obvious reasons. The $25,000 reimbursement,
Because you were busy.
or I'm just against it.
Same reason I didn't
25
get it.
So the state will let them reimburse a vehicle purchase up to $25,000 in the year that the purchase occurs. Anything over that threshold has to be amortized over 5 years. So they can take one-fifth of the purchase price and put in reimbursement. So over the next 5 years, they'll achieve that same reimbursement rate, but over 5 years rather than in the year. So our expense is recognized in this year, but the revenue to offset it is recognized over the next 5, which is a significant change from our past practice.
So the only thing that I will say that is related to that is in Tammy's memo, she said that it's over 3 years. So if a vehicle exceeds the
Excuse me,
threshold, there's a choice to claim only the $25,000 or to depreciate the vehicle over the course of 3 years.
And eligible for reimbursement from the state, is it a particular bucket? Because there are several buckets of stuff. Do we know if it's 100%? And does it
It's
have,
definitely not 100. The most it'll be is 75.
does it have to be a new car? Can we do an intercompany transfer for 25K out of, buy her newest car for 25K and ban, if you have one? And get reimbursement all this year, so we don't have to worry about the floating rate past us.
And I don't know if she's allowed to buy
Yeah.
used vehicles. I don't know if that's a thing. That'd be a question for the commission.
That's an interesting question.
But then you'd be kind of hurting our carpool fleet. I don't know if that's,
What if you did that? Yes.
Yeah, I guess what, I'm wondering if it's gonna hurt
Yeah, so then you-
DPW if you don't get this vehicle.
Dave,
This
you
use.
take one of our cars? What I mean,
Yeah. But you get a new, you would, when you take one away, you're gonna need to get a new one. Right. No, but then you get the new car. I mean, I'm just.
I see what you're saying.
her car doesn't have any reimbursement, so.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know, just trying to.
I'm
spread
gonna
it.
take Jay, but I do have the chairman wait.
That's right, I was just gonna comment that there was, up to $25,000 direct reimbursement, and then 3 years after that.
We covered.
You covered it, you got it already.
Jay.
I agree with the budget officer and the treasurer, if there was a vehicle there that they could take out. My question is, of our choice of vans to take out, are they all 150,000? I mean, are we?
We got new vans, what, a couple of years ago? You guys have taken.
Yeah, we've taken it to training. There's some nice vans in carpool.
Okay, so, yeah, I just didn't know if the choice if they were taking one out was the
Right.
one that we're trying to get rid of, that's all.
No.
I'm confused, so maybe be patient with me. If there is a program with Carpool that we've been working on for the last 2 or 3 years, whereby taking advantage of the funding stream of social services and how fast we can move cars through there into our carpool, because that was an approach we were using. And I almost think you come up with that idea and it saved us money. Now, fast forward to where we're at right now, when we talk about spreading it out over 3 years or 5 years to be repaid. We're still getting the repayment. Only instead of getting it 1 year, you're getting it 3
And
years.
you're getting 60% instead of 75.
But
That's
still,
the bigger
60% is better than zero, and when we
Absolutely.
buy something on a 4-car pool, it's zero.
So the bigger problem there is we have 13 cars sitting out here, only 6 of them leave. We could actually not buy a vehicle and we could take 6 of them and throw them in the carpool tomorrow.
Well, then,
'cause they've reached
then
the
our
3 years.
problem is we haven't got carpool straightened out as far
Well, we
as
would have, if we had
the
6
number
cars.
of vehicles that are assigned to different departments. Are you saying that social services should be downsized?
Absolutely.
Well, that's what, then let's get.
And we've had
to
the discussion in the past, but that's where we're at.
But we're frogging around here on buying a car out of carpool to put in over here financing. Why don't we just correct the problem?
I'm gonna just offer something that might be helpful.
Yeah.
So what I would propose, Supervisor Shaw, is to still give the van to still take that DSS van that the carpool was gonna get, still give it to it. And don't replace it. Still make the transfer into carpool like was planned. Retire the 2012, send it to auction, send the 2016 to carpool, don't replace it. On the days that Tammy staff needs a van, we'll take one out of carpool.
There you
That's
go.
that's my suggestion.
Okay. Well, that makes it simple. I mean,
I
and
feel
we
like it
want to
has-
try to stay simple on this, if we can. Now, how does Deb feel about
I
that?
don't know,
Well,
she's
she's got her
gonna tell
hand
us,
up.
cause
We'll
she's got
find
her
out.
hand up.
Well, we don't wanna leave Tammy short. I know it looks like there's cars parked out there, but in the email that she sent out last night, it justified the use of all of those cars.
They always do. I haven't got a department that won't justify the use of every car. And some of them were lockers for 10 years and had 7,000 miles on them.
I can tell you because of the location of my office, there's no less than 7 cars always in this park. Always.
But maybe that's a certain size she needs, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, if there's a carpool available that fits that certain
But I don't think
size.
it's every day that she needs a van, and when she does, go sign one out. I'm sorry, that's how I feel.
Yeah, so I guess my question would be, is it fair to ask the question, every day is your van is available down there? Or could they be out at a time when she needs to be?
They could be out, they could be out late. We made up the plan when we did the budget last year, and that's why we're going through it now. If you want us to change the plan, we have to have more time, I would say, to think about the repercussions of it.
Well, and the other reason I'm asking that question is she has an individual specific needs, and needs to be on a specific day to get to a specialist, medical specialist, for example, and you don't have any in the carpool.
There's no guarantee that any one
That's
of
my
those
point.
cars is there on any given day.
That's the concern.
Things are scheduled, and she call ahead for 3 days and hold that van and car. Yes.
She may not have.
You can reserve a car.
She needs to 3 days from now. If these come up, then they come up.
Charlie,
Certain
you had your hand up. So
I forgot.
So, in the club.
So Brian, just your math issues is that at 8 years, it's 11,500 a year on that car. on that van. That makes a big difference, but usually Matt, you're the finance officer.
Well, yeah, 2012 was what they said, and it was a 16. I didn't know that.
Do any harm to put this off for a month, maybe Tammy some here? Would it do any harm to put this off till next finance, so Tammy can be here and talk about it?
The bid will expire probably.
Yeah.
I have a question on the outgoing van, if this plan were to go into place, is it still serviceable? 150,000?
James, to get the cost of, that we've spent up to date on the car that we would sell. The car that we are taking out of DSS, put into carpool, to date has been invested $18,572. That includes, oil changes, tires and whatnot.
Over the full 7,
Over the number of
2016?
years that we've had, it, the life cycle, the life cost of it has been the 18.5.
For the
I
two
never
thousand
spent that
sixteen
much a year on mine.
For the 2016 vehicle.
And the
He's
2000
getting me the 2012 one now.
Person service.
but I mean, it's not even,
Deb-
probably it's ramps up.
Deb, does that count hours, labor hours?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why.
that counts.
It's still 2,000.
Labor, parts, services, and it's about half and half-ish for labor and parts. Roughly 9,000 for each.
Deb, the information that I received said that the 2012 Dodge Caravan was gonna go to the highway department.
No, the 2012 Caravan
Yep.
is in the highway department.
Okay, to replace your 2000, okay.
Yes,
Read your
so
email
that's
wrong.
the one that's gonna replace the
Okay.
2012 that we have.
If the 2012 is, it would overall take for money. If social services needs a better vehicle than they have, and the 2012 cost us $3,000 a year, $4,000 a year in maintenance, why don't we just swap a better van out of, if you have a newer van than her van, give her the better van. Sorry to do some worse van on you, and she can continue and we live along with the 2012.
So years ago, we just bought these cars outright, and this plan was implemented to help us purchase the cars.
Right.
So that's kind of why we're doing it. It's a whole big life cycle.
I respect
You know,
that.
it's hard to-
I was wondering if she needed it because that was approaching the level of service which you still can operate.
We felt that we needed a new vehicle, and we wanted to utilize the funding source.
And so you're saying the only van they have of that size is this one coming out of DSS?
She said that.
See, that's where the dilemma is.
Yeah, we looked at, they work together, Jamie and Russ work together to identify the best vehicle to come out of there. You know, does a van fit DPW the best way? No, not necessarily, maybe, but it's just recyclable. Possible.
Deb, does that cost of the 18,000 you said that we've spent on that vehicle over a number of years, which $1,100 or $1,100 or 1,150 miles a year, you said
11,500.
11,500. Does that include fuel or is that just maintenance, simple maintenance?
That's not a lot of money.
There's no.
Well, the 60 cents a mile is what they allow you to write off for expenses at the, right, at the state. Is that what that is? 60 cents a mile? That comes up to $660 and it's costing us $2,000 a year to maintain it. Why aren't we writing off more than that? Or, I mean, there's some, those numbers don't add up. Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, I mean, is that part of that cost what we're chargebacks for the? It shouldn't be though, it's all in, that's a lot of money. Under 100,000, you shouldn't have spent 18,000 on a vehicle.
It's, I think when you figure out any of the cars, they come out higher because of the labor rate and everything
I
that's.
realize that, but you send a car now to a dealership, you're getting $100 an hour charge for
Yeah,
like.
you're getting $100 for an oil change.
Right, so, you know, you should be only on your third set of tires at the most, and you've had 9 oil changes. Other than that, there better be something major. There we go, the hand's coming up.
There's the major, it does include the fuel cost, $5,800 and some odd dollars.
But that gets reimbursed too. Pardon?
So we've spent less than. To your point, it hasn't cost that much to me.
Still at 13,000.
And I can send this to you so that.
If you take 60% off that cost, because that would also get reimbursed back.
Well,
I
that's what
realize
it's telling you,
that, but
I'm
it's
paying
still,
for.
it's still very costly.
Costing so much. It's costing too much to maintain that vehicle. So
But
do
but
we have
you'll
a?
find that, I think, with every vehicle, won't they, Deb?
Well, I mean.
Yeah, you'll find that with every vehicle, just because we were set off.
You think your setup twice as expensive as the private sector? where I have to take
I
my
think it
car
comes
for
out of that
100.
way because you pay carpool, you pay the person, you pay their, pension, you pay their health insurance.
You do that when you go to the car dealership.
No. They
Oh,
don't-
no?
They don't have a state pension.
Plus over.
They don't have the health insurance we have.
But there's
a
two
big
people making a
expense.
profit in that. When you
Yeah.
go to the dealership, there's always two entities
Anytime
above
government's
them.
involved, it's more expensive. I don't care how you slice it.
Wow.
It's the way it is.
You know, it seems like we were worked the last, it's gotta be 4 years now on figuring out carpool. Okay, and we just sat here and heard that there's excess vehicles. Maybe that's the determination that we have come to. And that we may need to relook at it and see if the fleet that we have is larger than we need. Okay, when you start adding the cost of the vehicle, the change in percentage rate that could come from the state, going out over 3 years, then maintenance costs and maintaining these vehicles. You know, the hard work that everybody's done has brought us to this conclusion where we're having this discussion about how much these vehicles really do cost. And they might be just sitting there. And it might be time to really think
Yeah,
about.
so the real discussion on purchasing this vehicle is,
Right.
do you need one of that actual size? Is that important? That's
Exactly.
that's the consideration here in my mind.
Right. Right.
Charlie.
And I agree with Sue's comments, but I think there's a lot of parts to this problem. That we need to take a look at. We might be idle because it might very well be true that they don't have enough trained people working down there to go out in the cars right now because they're short staffed. And when they get trained up to staff level, they'll be on the road. So that might be what's going on, but I've only heard that and I haven't been able to check it out completely.
That's actually very accurate for the 8 vehicles that she has, that are assigned to the Children's Services Division. Because there's a lot of turnover in that area and there is a long training period involved. So she did give that as a reason why there aren't probably 4 vehicles out there anyway.
So I think a study, I think figuring things out in a bigger picture, planning ahead better on staffing and then letting us know we're gonna be short in car usage and then we don't buy a car for a year. If we lose 3 people out of that department, we could probably not replace a regular vehicle for a year or 2. I don't know.
Nate?
Is this being a requirement by the state or is this just a in-house want?
It's an in-house request.
Yeah, it's more than likely because of whether you have a whole group of kids, right? It's when you need a lot of
It's
people, it's a
spaced,
3-row,
right.
right? Sometimes you need a
Family.
3-row van, but we know how unpleasant they are to ride in.
They are.
So
The
they,
6 people.
the social services takes them to a doctor's appointment as a whole group, family with these vans.
I bet I can't.
Well, I don't even know if it's a doctor's appointment or you're taking them to visitation or if you're taking them somewhere else, it's, you know.
Oh, it's just a county service for providing it.
Yeah, that we're probably mandated to provide.
We may
You
have
know,
to
sometimes you
relocate.
have to go pick them up even from somewhere that they belong.
The one thing that I was made aware of this week, which I wasn't sure of before, was that the commissioner told me that the vehicles that are purchased with DSS that are sitting in the back that are their fleet can be used if needed by other departments. Which, you know, even though they're owned by DSS, it is something that can be utilized if need be.
So that's good to know. Lance.
Question, the unfunded mandates that we were talking about in our meetings last week, the majority of them were around DSS, as I understand. So in other words, are we cutting the fleet that we're about to get tasked to increase?
Well, they've put so much online that I think that's part of the reason they're not being utilized. It used to be, I don't know if you were ever up here in the last 10 years to speak of very much. If you came in on Wednesday, there'd be a line of people all the way to the cemetery. Now you never see a line out the door. So they've gotten so much online, which is very interesting because not all those people have computers and be online if they're in this shape, but they do. So it's changed and I don't know that we've evolved with the change or how we're actually gonna get there. I know Charlie's doing his best to figure out if there is a way to get there or evolve with it. And that's the best we can do at this point in time.
Really to what Melissa said, and because we get reimbursed, I would move to accept the bid. And then we look close if Deb's next purchase is for the fleet, because we'll just fall back on some of the DSS vehicles that are sitting there rather than purchasing extra.
Second. I think we already have motions.
Oh, you have a motion on the table.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
think we already had a motion on.
And one's on the floor. What-
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
To what? What was the motion? You said you had one on the floor, we couldn't use your motion, or your motion is the one we're doing.
No, we already had, we didn't need a motion and a second to buy it. We already had that. That's what his
It's my
motion.
turn.
That's what I was asking, I
Yeah.
didn't know what it was.
So we awarded the bid and there's no resolution needed.
Oh, really, we sold it 2000.
What was the motion everybody just did on?
To award the bid.
To award the bid to buy the vehicle.
Bid.
I think that there's not a proper request made.
Yeah. So, yeah,
You're a member of the
we'll
committee?
do a roll call. He's not a member of the committee, but we'll do
Can we have a motion?
Yeah.
Why are you up here at the table?
I'll switch with somebody for you.
We should put a label on it for Hogan seat for finance.
You're lucky, I didn't hear out of either.
Anyway, roll call it is.
Mr. Campbell,
No.
Mr. Rozell,
No.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
No,
Mr. Skelly,
Yes.
Mr. Hogan,
No.
Mrs. Clary,
No.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. Tall.
Yes. Did we tie? We have an even number.
Six, so it does pass. Six out of the 11.
Aye.
Thank you.
We had an on.
I've never seen that.
so it passed?
It passed. Okay, let's move on. County Administrator, health insurance renewal.
Okay.
Larry.
No, okay, so, time of year where we look at our health insurance and we're up for renewal. The contract, ends the end of May. We've met with Benetech several times, gone over claims. I just met with the union representatives last week, I believe, and we discussed, the increase. So we are currently looking at a 21% increase, for the health insurance for this year. So that 21% increase applies to the employees that have the coverage as well as to the county. But the employees contribute at a 25% rate where the county contributes at a 75% rate. A lot of this increase is due to, well, it's all due to the claims cost, right? That's the direct cause for the increase because we pay claims only now because we are self-insured. So it's the amount of the claims that are coming through. Even though we have a lower amount of high claims, we still have expensive claims and a lot of them. The other huge contributor is pharmacy. It's the medications, prescriptions that people are getting. That cost is just, it's really grown this past year. So during the open enrollment period, we'll be looking at, or we already have looked at different prescription programs to help control those costs a little bit, and those will be offered to the employees. So what we're looking to do now is to authorize the chairman to sign the contract for Highmark, which is the medical portion that's offered to employees. And then Anthem would be the vision. And Delta Dental would be the dental coverage. So those are the same three providers that we had last year. But I did want to make you know, aware that it's a 21% increase. I know you've already received some phone calls, maybe from retirees who are contributing the same rate as the employees. Those would be the people younger than 65 before they go on the Medicare Advantage plan. It's a large increase. It's the biggest one I've seen since I've been here, and it's a large increase probably anywhere, but it's not unusual right now. Benetech in meetings had mentioned that they're seeing increases much larger than that this year with other groups that they have. There were some concerns when we had the meeting with the union and talked to the employees. You know, they wanted us to be aware and the supervisors to be aware that, you know, they're having a hard time right now financially. Many of them have 2 jobs or more than 2 jobs. And this is affecting them pretty harshly. So I told them that, you know, I understood that and I would pass that on to the supervisors. And open enrollment will begin the end of April, as long as you approve the contracts to be signed.
I thought last year that we had a 32% increase and we paid part of that. We paid part of that, so we reduced it to 16%.
The county infused the
Yes.
budget by $2
So
million.
to kind of put it in perspective, there's a fund balance in this account and partly paid by the county, partly paid by the employees. And it had gotten bigger and we had used it to offset costs. The problem was then we weren't making them live up to their union contract of 25%, but that's putting more of the county money in. It was back around the 20%. Well, now we don't have any more in the kitty because it's.
The till has gone dry.
The till's gone dry. So under that situation, you kind of gotta live up. The union agreed to these contracts. We agreed to these contracts. This is just putting the playing field level again, and we're gonna have to live with whatever the cost is. I gotta add in the budget anything I have to add to make this work, and they have to add it in their budget, but it's gonna make you think differently, probably on raises and stuff, because you don't want them to lose salary because of insurance, but it's still a benefit. So it's just where we're at.
That's 37% over 2 years. We're lucky it's not more.
Right, well, it has been more totally to us. But that's what's,
What's the dollar value?
it's,
Okay,
there's a bunch of different categories, like we did come up with numbers. I haven't got that.
I have it somewhere. You mean what the employees are paying?
Right, what the increase.
No, for the total,
County.
yeah.
75% of about 1.7 million is my rough memory. Just right.
That work out to be.
1.225 million.
Yeah.
Who did that, Jack? No.
Charlie.
Charles, we got a new candidate. over
You
here.
are kidding.
A new calculator.
What did we put in last year extra?
2 million.
2 million. That,
And I think it was $1 million the year before.
And $1 million the year before.
because we were so healthy. We put it in.
That
That's why we
changed
did it, right?
Everything was healthy.
We took certain.
Well, we're not taking putting anything in this year because we're not healthy.
Right.
So we put in 2 million last year.
Because we could.
And if we hadn't, we wouldn't be 5 million short this year. Reality.
So you mentioned dental insurance. We don't self-insure the dental part?
No. We pay a flat rate, was it $10
It's like $10 a month.
that the county
The
pays?
county pays.
Because I've never seen a dental insurance plan that didn't really make sense to drop. So.
Right.
Not used.
No, they're not.
You basically
None of them are any good.
$1,000 or
Right.
$1,100 in coverage and you're paying on average $980 per employee.
We don't, we pay $10.
We don't, but you know what I mean? So you pay the insurance company about $1,000 for $1,100 of potential coverage.
Right.
So most people don't go to the dentist 2 times, and if they do, we should backstop them on, we shouldn't pay dental insurance.
But we
for
took
operating.
care of that. We only pay $10 towards their dental insurance. That's all we pay.
Right.
But they're paying.
We should
the
pay
rest.
them up to $1,100 for their dental bills. they would make more money, we would not have to pay, by not paying for any insurance.
So
I see the point.
the $1,100 is fine. However, what you're missing is these dental insurance companies have negotiated with other groups. And they're getting reduced rates
Well,
at the dental groups.
that's a joke.
So I had one procedure done that was, and Brian's going through the same thing. There's substantial money involved. If we were paying a flat rate to the dentist, it'd cost us $2,000 or $3,000 more.
Well,
Well, we,
there's certain dentists that won't even see people if you don't have insurance. That's kind of true, which doesn't make sense to me either. We have a few of those.
okay.
And the other thing is, usually it's the opposite. If you're paying cash, you get a better rate than you do if you have insurance. So I've seen it everywhere. I haven't seen anything actually good in dental insurance
Right.
unless you know you're gonna spend, like you said, the 1,100 or the 1,500, you buy whichever.
Right.
But it's, as far as the cost to the county, it's $10 per employee that takes it, right?
Yes.
So $10, it isn't a big cost to the county to provide that. And then they decide if they want it or not.
I'm just, they wouldn't have to buy it if we would cover it if, somewhere it's too much money being made in the dental insurance by the dental insurers. That's all I'm saying. If nobody, either you spend 1,100 or you spend 2.
Right.
And everything out of pocket after 1,100 is your own, or 1,500.
Retail does procedures that when I pay cash, I pay a full. There is no discount for cash. That might be dentist to dentist, but I know another one probably doesn't do that too, that we share.
I pay my dentist first and maybe I do, or maybe I don't get something back from the insurance company. He doesn't differentiate.
Right.
Do that out.
So
They've quit taking the insurance. It's so bad.
anyway, just my 2 cents on dental insurance.
So how much is it going up to the employees? Is that what this is all about? With the numbers that you have, what's the increase per month or per year? So we know what we're doing.
It varies depending what plan they have and how many family members they have on the plan. Some it's, I think we said $50 a month, other it was up to like $100 in additional a month.
Okay.
But the lowest the increase was going to be is 15. So
Right.
that's not a fair comparison.
Right. It was gonna be
Well,
15%.
Some of the $50
increase
was
anyway.
gonna happen anyway.
Less-
Lowest it was gonna be is 15.
Less of an increase isn't a decrease, what you always said.
That's correct. But it's not
So-
fair to say that the increase is $50 because 15% of that is gonna happen anyway.
Yeah, but it's still I'm not trying to argue, but the 15% increase is still higher than the employees have seen. So I reminded them also, there's been years where they've had a 0% increase for health insurance. Last year was the highest and that was the 15%. So that was a hit to them. That was, more than they've ever paid before. So this is another one. So I understand that we thought it would be a 15% increase, but to them, that 15 was still a high number.
Well, I mean, just to put it all in perspective. And then this is all I'm not trying to play this down as being a minor impact to employees. When the price of gas changes 50 cents a gallon, what is that to impact to people versus this? And you gotta look at everything and now what's the impact to us if it's 15% to begin with nothing? And up to $100 a month, worst case scenario, let's say, that's to the employee's payroll.
Yes.
What is the impact to us for the year increase? How much more are we
Did
paying?
you say it was 1.7 million altogether
Increase
for the year?
or is that,
That's off the top of my head. I don't have that number in front.
but is that an increase or is that just what our bill will be? No,
No, our bill's over 10.
Yeah, it's going from like 8.5 million to 10.1, 10.2. So
okay, so we're talking another big increase in our county budget.
yes.
Well, we've budgeted where we kind of belong, so we've done a good job budgeting the number, but you gotta remember they start in June, whereas we started in January. So we're good for now, but we'll have to add some in next year's budget because you gotta expect this is gonna continue. We haven't seen anything really level off yet. It started to level a little bit, but not the drugs are so much higher now.
So this isn't gonna cause a shortfall in this year's budget, is what
Well,
you're
if
saying?
we let them pay their 21% instead of us bailing them out, we think we're gonna get by on this year's budget. In this year. Yes, that was the reason we're passing it out and making them pay their 25% at this point. Is to stay a little fiscally sound somewhere, because we're certainly losing ground everywhere else.
Move to authorize the chairman to sign the contract.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carry. Treasurer.
And the good news continues, right?
No, it wouldn't now.
My sunny disposition will continue for the next 30 seconds.
Time's up.
The only thing that I'm gonna report to you this morning of any use is unfortunately the sales tax is still $236,000 over this time last year. 3 of the 5 deposits have been under last year, and it's the last 3. So we're trending the wrong direction, which we had a fear could happen. I'm not warm and fuzzy with the current economics. And I'm reading the newspaper and see that in the news every morning either, that consumer confidence is at an all-time high. So I'm not warm and fuzzy that this trend won't continue to be in the red. I can't tell you that it's gonna be in the red. But I can tell you that the last 3 deposits have been, and I don't see any relief in sight from, you just heard about, our employees are looking at a 21% increase in their health insurance. Well, those same employees are also taxpayers. They're also paying $7.38 for 18 rack of eggs at Walmart, and cost is up everywhere. So I think you're gonna have people are already making hard decisions about where their disposable income goes. And I think we're seeing that in the last 3 deposits. So I would be happy if we made budget this year, but I wouldn't plan.
Wouldn't bet on it right
I
now.
wouldn't plan any growth. Charlie?
What's the spacing between the payments that you receive and how late are they from when they took place? So what's
So
what's your lead lag pipeline there?
So I can send out to the board, in addition to the schedule that I gave you this morning, I can actually give you the schedule from the state that shows what period of time these deposits are for. So I actually do share with the budget officer, and probably you all would benefit from it too. For each of the deposits on this sheet, I can provide you a sheet that shows you what period of time the sales were.
Okay.
And one of our deposits every month is a guess by the state. And one of our deposits by the month is the actual reconciliation. So when I see 3 in a row negative, it means, so I don't care if they get the guess wrong.
Right.
But when the reconciliation comes and it's down again,
So these are monthly payments.
they're usually bi-monthly. Most months, there's 2 deposits. One estimated and one true up. When the true up comes in negative, that scares me because I don't get nervous if the estimate is under. Because I don't care if they underestimate one of them, because I'll get it on the back end. When they're both negative, I get a little more twitchy because that means it actually is down.
So the 2 payments per month, one of them is for an expected full month. And then you plus or minus on the second payment, like a negative payment, a pullback.
So they're both for periods of time, and again, I'll share the sheet with you because what the schedule will show you is some of it is people who make monthly EFT payments, and then some of it is like quarterly filers. So it depends on what type of filer what type of filer you are when your money comes to me. But there is a schedule that will show you the period of time covered. So that's like in February, we're just getting the benefit in February from the Christmas sales. So there's a definite lag in when we see the number from the time that it actually happened. But I think that sheet might be useful to the board as well. So you can wrap your head around not only are we trending, but when did the trend start, right? That might be helpful.
So we're really just getting into January and February's right now, which makes sense that it would be down. And then July is our real reconciliation, that 13th. As you can see, there's 4 payments in June where they try to rapid fire catch up and then in July, on July 13th, they have a total reconciliation. And that one will tell us the biggest story going into actual budget season. The other thing I'll tell you is if I don't count this up or down and count this just flat, right now to cover our actual costs without raises or anything, we're at a 13% tax increase. You wanted to know the number?
The other,
You asked me the number a couple months ago and I said, I'll get back to you. So,
Including our forecast for DSS.
yes, at the moment, but we don't have a forecast for DSS because DSS never gave us any numbers to show how they lost the money. So we can project if we're still losing it now to project what the loss will be next year. That's what we need is those numbers to actually pull that apart, see why the reimbursement rate dropped from 72 to 62. And is it going to 52? Is it staying at 62 or going back to 72? We don't know that because they have not provided one thread of information only for 1 month in January. And I specifically asked for that same sheet on revenue for the 12 months in 24, and they didn't have time for it when we had our workshop. I said, well, please have it by finance, and I never even got a response. So I know that's an issue, and there's no way to calculate it if you don't know how they got there to begin with. So I have no idea if it's their lack of knowing how they got there, or if the state controls it in such a way that they can't even calculate how they got there. That I don't know. But I know that I would love to have a chat with their fiscal officer when the time presents itself and compare the revenues. And I was told in my last email that I could get that from New World. And Al and I have actually drilled down on that. And we did find an area where we can, but I don't know that I have legal access to that area in New World. I don't know what my restrictions are, but you showed me on yours. So that was just 1 month.
but it does look like in the first quarter of 2025, that it's still bleeding money. It doesn't, it has not corrected itself.
So right now, we still expect to bleed 4 million. So
You're including the 4 million.
I'm including that at the moment.
Are you including the 4 million with the 13% increase?
That's what I'm including right at the moment. But if you also erode sales tax, and I assume we're giving raises, there's, we're not getting to your 40, I hope, but we're closer to 20
Well, not
than
this
I
year,
wanted
but
to
you'll be
be.
there next year.
Well, I would rather do 1 year and try to correct
Been there.
everything and go
I've seen
back
it.
to the 2% cap than I would
I
go that route.
I've
Because
seen sales tax.
I believe our raise
down
the
3
age
years
money
in a
would at
row.
least come back then too, if you go back. But I don't know that. I'll need an answer for that. I mean, once you go over, I know you don't get it that year, but does it get reinstated if you don't go over the next year?
Oh, you went through it like we did.
No. But say we actually go over, we're not gonna get raise the age money that year, but the following year,
As long as you're compliant.
As long
as long as you're compliant, does it come back or is it in perpetuity because you went over it
No.
once?
It's a year to year.
So that's how we'll do it. That's a reason why you do everything in 1 year and not do it 2 years. I don't know if that's enough, according to how much they send there. Whenever they start a new program, it takes a while for them to send money there, but then when they do, there's a lot of money sent there, so it adds up after a while.
So the other thing, the other report that I'll send you with the sales tax deposit schedule is, every year I provide to you a recap of the town's tax collection. I still have one town that didn't turn over to me yet, so I wasn't able to get that report to you today. But I would assume by tomorrow or Monday, I'll be able, it does, so on the surface, I haven't drilled the numbers down. On the surface, it does look like collection was a little bit stronger this year. I haven't run the numbers this year to last year, but sometimes, so there's always winners and losers. Some towns did better, some towns did worse, right? In dollar wise, I haven't done dollars to dollars, right? So as soon as that town is in and reconciled, I will also get that report out to show. The report, for those of you who haven't seen it before, the report shows like the past 10 years, and it shows number of parcels that that were billed, number of parcels that were paid, number of parcels that were unpaid that are now collectible by the county. Right, so that's a more apples to apples measurement, I think, of how we're doing, you know, and I think that it's also a little bit of a finger on the pulse of our communities, right? If people are having a harder time paying their taxes, it kind of shows up in that report. Because the dollar amount could be higher, but you could have less parcel turned over to me. So I think that having the parcel count is as important, if not more important, than the dollar amount. Mr. Topple.
If I'm not mistaken, the penalty for not paying annualized is 2% right now.
No,
Because that's what some of my constituents paid late because of.
so it's 1% in February, 2% in March, but then in April, there's an additional percent and additional 5%. So the annualized penalty in year one is 17%.
I thought, they said, no, I didn't pay because, and these are some big taxpayers.
Yeah.
And I said, why are you waiting
It's 2% if they pay by March 31st.
They'll know.
on the whole amount?
On
Not
the whole-
annual.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But it
They'll know
drastically,
soon.
They made a mistake.
it drastically changes after April.
70%, that's good money.
No, I mean, there was a substantial check that didn't pay, because they thought stupidly now, that they were only annualized using 2%.
And I do find taxpayers that are lucky enough to be earning more on their investments than the rate that we charge as a penalty. And they will wait until such time as that number doesn't work for them anymore.
Not a guaranteed investment.
Not a guarantee, but if they're making 8%, it might still be worth waiting on the 7% in April, right? So some people still make that strategic
So
decision.
those are the loan sharks.
Creative financing. Yeah. Ms. Claire.
Last time we talked at the town board meeting about the unpaid water, that will come through to the county, which ours is about 27.5. But what we were talking about, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, is that if they wait and pay their water from June to county, they actually can take it off their input taxes as taxes rather than.
So my understanding, and I can either confirm or deny what you just said.
Okay.
My understanding is parenthetically that if you don't pay your water bill and it gets re-levied onto a town and county bill,
Yeah.
and you have an escrow, your escrow will pay that town and county bill. And if you itemize your taxes, that town and county bill becomes part of the deduction you take on that itemized deduction. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Yes.
Some people will play that game,
Yeah.
that added to their escrow becomes easier for them cash flow wise,
Yes.
but it also then becomes part of the bill that they deduct on their, when they itemize their deductions on their tax.
Thank you.
There's more givens.
One of the things that's always worse in the budget process are the surprises that we get. There must be, and then our primary surprises come from the state, frankly, over the years. There must be counties that have gone over the tax cap somewhere in the past 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
I was thinking that perhaps the budget officer should contact the budget officer in those counties and see if there was anything besides raise the age the state would help because they were over the cap. We heard about raise the age. That doesn't mean that's the only thing that they don't. We're gonna get paid for it.
There's nothing else legislatively that they should be allowed to, Chairman.
I'm
I know you're not warm and fuzzy in that
not
answer.
warm and fuzzy on that at all. And I'm not necessarily convinced that legislatively is the only way that they
Well,
deal with it.
I would argue that the sales tax intercept that they did under Como wasn't
Right,
allowable
There's all kinds.
when it happened.
right, there's all kinds of stuff like that. I just think maybe we ought to ask some of the other counties.
Well, I did talk to John Stebbin or any county, because they were went over and they lost their ACH funding. He didn't mention that there was anything more, but I will ask again.
Well, I think that'd be a specific question to ask. before
Yeah.
we start this budget process.
Yeah, and the other thing is, would you lose it if you didn't override the cap, or is that what makes you lose it? So, because your penalty isn't too bad for overriding the cap, for not overriding the cap, I've done that before at the town level. They make you put that excess in escrow and earns you interest. And it's money you couldn't spend anyway, so.
That's on the town level, but on the county level,
Yeah, so-
there's income from the state that's not coming in.
Right, so I don't know exactly how that would work.
In the grand scheme, raise the age may not be all that significant, but
It's not at the moment, but it's probably gonna get there.
there's several other things that ancillary to that we don't know about. Be worth knowing, goes there, question.
And our biggest problem is you can't use fund balance, because if we take a hit,
Not if, when.
if we take a bigger hit than we took this year from social services and or a hit on your sales tax, you're then below the amount of money we need to cash flow. We're gonna, I don't know, it'll be well for you to know the exact number yet, but we can't lose another 4 or 5 million. out
My
of fund
projection is we're
balance.
gonna end at 15. That's a very uncomfortable.
Right, and so 10 is devastating. So that's why I'm not looking to say, oh, we're just gonna cut the highway patrol and not build another bridge. Yeah, that would get us there, but then you're in dire straits. You're smarter to
And
tax
I remember
to
that
some
when
degree.
the first year or two we were here.
Oh, yeah,
We were in
we've been
that
through
same
this,
situation.
but we don't wanna go back there if we can help it.
Brian, I'm only gonna ask this because you threw that 13% out, so I'm trying to understand it is all. You said that we're looking at a 13% increase right now. If that's, are you saying that is if sales tax hits
Doesn't-
last year's number,
If it hits what we've got budgeted,
which is,
29 and a half.
we budgeted 29.5?
Yeah, it's right on the very top of the list. Adopt.
Oh, yeah. And what if it comes up $1 million short? Does
That
that
would be
mean that
another,
we
that'd be
automatically?
another 3%.
Right, that's what I wanted to
Yep.
do. Okay, thank you. That's what I need.
Yeah, every million is.
Well, it's a little less than, it's a little, we're a little over 330 or 33 million, aren't we? On
37.
37, so we're always.
So, question. If we override the taxes that there's a penalty, what happens if we don't adopt a budget and the default budget goes in place? Does that still trigger the loss of raise the age?
No, because you're complying with the tax cap, your increase is zero.
No,
No, it's whatever I put out.
whatever he puts out.
If you're
That
saying
could be
if
a
they-
30% increase, yeah.
Put on a $300 million budget. And we didn't override the tax cap. Default budget goes in place unless any amendments made by the board.
If that budget goes into place and you didn't override the cap, every dollar
That's
over the
what I
cap
think.
gets reserved.
Yes. Which isn't a bad thing, you have cash flow.
And interest, like, do we lose the raise the age or not?
Yes, because you're not complying with the tax cap.
I'm just pointing Larry.
Very good.
Sunshine and roses, my friends. Glad to be here.
Very good.
Do we wanna go to Larry right now? Is that what he's right? Or we, so. I'll need a vote, one big executive session.
So
Moved by Mr. Hogan, executive by Dan. All in favor, say aye.
He doesn't look.
And you can give us the reason.
Reason is for contract negotiation.
There you go.